excellence and integrity you have come to expect from us. We did it once before, and now we are better prepared and equipped to ensure that our future leaders get what they truly deserve: the best education. Applications can be done online via ztech.ac.ke.
Tap into the convenience of ABSA contactless cards, another innovation that's turning banking on its head. Now you can make fast, easy and safe contactless payments for everyday items. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
This is NTV.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. You're watching NTV at One. My name is Zeynab Ismail. This 19th day of April 2021. The presidential election petitions in 2013 and 2017 and the judgments of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice Willie Mutunga and David Maraga were part of the latest interview seeking to replace Justice Maraga, who retired in January this year. Justice Nduma Nderi of the Employment and Labour Relations Court says that in his opinion there were disparities and challenges that both judgments he believes were not clearly spelt out. Nduma Nderi, who has served in the judiciary since 2012, believes that his service at the judicial system in the Kingdom of Swaziland for over a decade has given him the best platform to become Kenya's next Chief Justice. Leila Mohammed has been listening in on the 6th day of interviews. Leila, thank you for joining us. What was the contention of a presidential election petitions according to Justice Nderi?
Well, Zeynab, proof of evidence in both petitions, which he terms as Raila 1 and Raila 2, and he was put to task to explain his opinion on why he believes that either Justices Willie Mutunga or David Maraga made some significant issues with their judgments, which they headed in the Supreme Court in 2013 and 2017. But before we listen in onto what he gave as his response, he dealt in different ways in terms of how he came up as a justice of the Employment and Labour Relations Court. He spoke about his history in the 1991 era, where there was the second liberation, him having to represent persons who had been detained. And he says that that was a driving force in him in terms of dealing with governments. This was a matter where he says he was personally told that his life was in danger, forcing him to leave the country and go to Swaziland, where he spent over a decade. And he believes that time when he was in that country now known as the Kingdom of Eswatini is what will become a part and parcel of his leadership as the Chief Justice. But back to the issue of presidential petitions, this is what Justice Nduma Nderi talked about, what both leaders in 2013 and 2017 did, and his thoughts on the matter.
I have interacted with 2013. Is it 2013? Raila 1. I've interacted with Raila 2. The 2017 ones, and my issue is that there is uncertainty in the law of resolving presidential elections arising from those two landmark decisions, the Mutunga one and the Maraga one. And the Supreme Court has got the mandate to depart from its own decisions, and so there's nothing wrong with areas of disparity because they are permissible in interpreting, especially in interpreting Section 83 of the Elections Act vis-a-vis the Constitution, and the meaning of the impact of transmission of votes from the polling stations to the tallying centers to the national center, how that impacts the election.
Which means, my Lord, you are not willing to take a position on Maraga 1 and Mutunga.
I think it is not right for any judge to do that.
Okay. What, in your view, should be the standard of proof in presidential petition?
Section 83 and the relevant provisions in the Constitution. We have the principles which tell us that constitutional edicts which say that this standard of accuracy, transparency must be achieved for an election to be free and fair.
Well, Zeynab, he spoke on various issues very eloquently. He talked about how BBI report will affect the office of the Ombudsman, who is proposed to become part of the JSC. He says he will work with that individual according to how the regulations of the Constitution change will affect the judiciary. And he says also he has spoken very well in terms of gender disparity in terms of pay as a justice of the Labour Relations Court. So this is just to give you in highlights. Maybe more we'll be able to bring to you in our subsequent bulletins, Zeynab.
All right, thank you, Leila, for that comprehensive report. Looking forward to that report later on. Meanwhile, last night, motorists using the busy Thika superhighway were once again caught up in the mayhem of the 8 p.m. curfew. While the pileup of the cars paled in comparison to Saturday night's containment, many motorists complained over the government's enforcement rule. Gina Kirori was on the ground last night and brings us this report.
Ambulances must use the inner lane. So that is the arrangement that we have. We say that we're going to be here na tuko hapa leo. Wale wote ambao wanachelewa tutakaa nao hapa mpaka asubuhi.
Police officers from the Kasarani police station set up camp at the underbelly of the Roosters Junction along Thika Road at a few minutes past 7 p.m, allowing a significant number of cars to pass, even an hour past curfew. But at 9 p.m. sharp, the inevitable happened. And anyone that was not an essential worker on duty was blocked from accessing the roads leading to Thika for a second night in a row.
If you are not engaged on duty, you are abusing that privilege. We are not going to allow that. Service providers who are on duty, wale wako kazini ndio wanapita.
A number of those caught at the roadblock under the influence were not spared.
Unatoka ulevi alafu unaweza kutuambia ni mtu wa daktari? Fungua hapa hivi. Weka hiyo gari hapo. Fungua hapa. Unatoka ule? Na pime hapo. Peleka hapo. Afungua mlango, hajafungua. Fungua mlango.
This man and his daughter were caught up in the mayhem as he struggled to get his wife, who was in labor, to the hospital. Those on the other side of the highway leading to Nairobi were also frozen, despite trying to convince officers of their reasons for being caught on the road past curfew.
Why should I lie to you?
And at around 10 p.m, the officers gave the strongest indication that motorists would be on the roads for the long haul, as they lit a bonfire by the roadside to keep drivers warm. They were eventually released at around 2 a.m. Some of the motorists, however, complained that they had valid reasons for being on the road and that the extended stay would delay their reporting to work today, especially for those supplying goods.
Tulikuwa tunatoka Isiolo, tumefika hapa saa 3 na dakika 20. Tukasuiriwa eti hatuna barua, na barua yenyewe tulikuwa nayo lakini ni fenya haikuwa na rubber stamp original. Wakasema ni fake, wakatusuia hapa. So sasa tutashinda hapa siku mzima, atuchelewa, hatuna mwelekeo wowote. Tuone kama hii curfew inasaidia, sababu tuko essential services na rais mwenyewe alisema kwamba watu wa chakula wanafaa watembee usiku essential services. Lakini sasa tunakisuiliwa, hiyo ni kumaanisha nini? Na tuko na barua. Hata kama tungekuwa na barua, gari yenyewe imeandikwa ni gari ya chakula.
The operation was among several being conducted, including Langata Road, Jogo Road and Wayaki Way, with officers stating that it will continue until citizens adhere to the rules. Health experts have, however, termed it as counterproductive and called for the review on transport regulations during the pandemic. It has indeed been a question of lives versus livelihoods, with the government determined to stamp the authority, especially on the 8 p.m. curfew. But while the numbers may have dwindled on day 2 on Thika Superhighway tonight, the anger amongst many Kenyans has not, as they call it a poor call of judgment on the part of the government. Gena Kirori, NTV.
Well, tough times indeed. Thanks, Ngina, for that. Meanwhile, there has been a rise of cases of spouses killing one another. The latest incident happened in Kamulu area in Nairobi, where a husband reportedly killed his wife. Police have begun a hunt for the man, as Neoma Sampao tells us.
Albert Maeche, who's at large, reportedly called the caretaker of a single-roomed house he had rented in Kamulu around 5:30 p.m. yesterday, asking him to check on his wife, alleging that she was not feeling well. And when the caretaker went to check, he found her lying in bed while bleeding from the armpits.
Amenipigia simu saa 11:34, akaniambia niende kwa nyumba niangalie bibi yake, amesikia ameumia. Kwa hivyo kufika kwa mlango, nimepata tu mlango haijafungwa kwa konji. Nikabisha, hakuna mtu amefungua. Nikaita jirani yake ambaye ni msichana, akakuja akabisha, mlango hukufunguliwa. Tukasukuma mlango tukaingia. Kuingia tumepata huyo madama amelala kwa kitanda na aongei. Tukajaribu kumtingiza, hakuna lolote alikuwa anasema. Kwa hivyo tukamuinua, tukachukua makaratasi tukaanza kumpuliza. Hakuongea. Kwa hivyo wakati tumemuinua mkono, tumepata akivunja damu kwa makwapa.
It is not yet clear what could have gone wrong between the two. Neighbors described Albert as a silent and peaceful man who had never been engaged in quarrels with anyone for the period of 6 months that he lived there. Elsewhere in Boni, an irate mob has killed a 74-year-old man who killed his wife by cutting her into pieces. Boniface Mutua, 74, is reported to have reported home at the onset of COVID-19 pandemic last year, a home he abandoned 20 years ago after selling the family's piece of land. However, his wife Ruth Kavisu Mutua, of 71 years old, now deceased, went ahead and returned money to the land buyer with a title deed getting revoked. Mutua is said to have returned with the intentions of acquiring the title deed to sell the same land he had sold years ago, something that his wife and her children had resisted.
Got another wife and he moved. He moved with the other wife. So within this time of Corona, I think he experienced challenges of financial things and all. So at one time when I came over, I told him, could be you have challenges, financial or another thing. We shall accommodate you, but kindly stay with us with peace.
The charred body of the man and pieces of his wife have been taken to Makueni Referral Hospital morgue. Neoma Sampao, NTV.
Well, truly devastating report there. Meanwhile, food insecurity remains a challenge in Kenya. The Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis has this morning held a forum alongside the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on the policy mix and data challenges encountered in mitigating food insecurity. Our very own Julian Samboko is now speaking to the Executive Director at KIPRA, Dr. Rose Ngugi. Julian?
Thanks, Zeynab Ismail. As you rightly mentioned, there was a very interesting forum this morning focusing on a raft of issues from food security to the policy mix. And we're privileged to have Dr. Rose Ngugi, the Executive Director at the Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis. Welcome on set. Let's just begin by looking at the platform which has been the focus this morning, and give us some insight into what it's all about.
Yeah, today we've launched the national a platform for food and nutrition. This is an information platform which is being put together so that we can bring all information, all data that is from the different players so that it can guide in addressing key pertinent issues in food nutrition, and also help us in refining the policy environment for enhancing nutrition and addressing the SDG goal number 2. So this platform, at the moment, the project is being implemented by Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis, and also the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So the two institutions cannot just work alone. So they need to bring in other key players in nutrition. And among them includes the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, and also Water and Sanitation. All these are very crucial in addressing matters malnutrition.
Yes.
So the platform is here to really act as a platform where the multi-sectoral, the multi-actors, can actually work together and bring their expertise in addressing matters malnutrition in Kenya.
Let me hold you there, Dr. and just ask, now that it is really an aggregating pool for data as far as these issues are concerned, how serious is the data deficit that we have when it comes to the issues of food security in the country?
First of all, you know that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is the agency that is given the official mandate to ensure that they can bring together all statistics. And each year, you know that we have the economic survey that is produced by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and in it there is quite a lot of statistics. But in addition to that, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics carries out various surveys. Surveys tend to be also very expensive. And for example, there is one key survey, the Kenya Household Survey, that looks at issues to do with health. And the last one that was done by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is 2014. Which means that anytime you talk about issues of malnutrition in Kenya, that is where we go back to 2014. So which means that if we don't do them regularly, as expected every 5 years, then what you'll notice is that there'll be some gap in terms of explaining the status, for example, of malnutrition. And without frequency in data, it means that you are not able to guide the policymakers in taking a course of action immediately and in a timely manner.
My final question then, what are some of the outcomes you do expect once this platform is now optimized in terms of utilization?
One of the key things that we will find or that has been brought out by the various stakeholders is that it is important to have coordination among the multi-agencies, coordination across the various sectors. Without information, it's very difficult for you to coordinate various sectors. It's very difficult for you to coordinate various agencies. So this platform is meant actually to be like a one-stop shop where you can actually collect information and also disseminate information and allow for evidence generators to use the same to analyze and give policy advice.
Right, many thanks, Dr. Rose Ngugi, Executive Director at KIPRA. She has been shedding light on the platform which has just been unveiled to aggregate data on matters of food security in the country, as well as other issues. Back to you, studio, Zeynab Ismail.
Thank you so much, Julian Amboka, our business editor, for that. Let's now take a very short break. We'll be back with more. Well, thank you for staying with us. To some international news now. And a fire fanned by strong winds raged Sunday in the foothills of Cape Town's landmark Table Mountain. The fire partially destroyed the University of Cape Town's Jagger Library and the historic Mostad's Mill. As strong winds fanned the blaze, hundreds of University of Cape Town students had to flee their dormitories on foot along the main road as the library burnt. At least one firefighter has been injured as emergency services fight to contain a fire that broke out on Sunday in that area. Well, Ingenuity, a small helicopter that landed on Mars in February, is on the underside of the Perseverance rover and is set to attempt the first flight on the Martian surface today. The twin-blade rotorcraft will attempt to fly 3 meters above the ground and hover for about half a minute. Cameras mounted on Perseverance are expected to record the history-making attempt that is being anxiously awaited here on planet Earth. Monday's test flight will be the first of 5 planned for Ingenuity within a 31-day window that kicked off last week. Ingenuity was designed by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. If successful, video of the flight attempt is expected to be beamed back to Earth after a few days, given the distance it takes to send data from Mars to Earth. Earlier this month, Ingenuity successfully completed a pre-flight test. Well, that will certainly be something very interesting to watch out for. Meanwhile, India's capital, New Delhi, will impose a week-long lockdown from Monday night, officials said, as the megacity struggles to contain a huge surge in COVID-19 cases, with hospitals running out of beds and oxygen supplies low. The vast nation of 1.3 billion people reported a record high of 273,810 infections on Monday, the 5th consecutive day of more than 200,000 cases. The restrictions followed similar measures in other parts of India, including in the western state of Maharashtra, home to financial capital Mumbai, and the southern state of Tamil Nadu.
What we are seeing, and this is all anecdotal or personal experience, is there are younger patients who are being admitted into hospital and are more sick than the type of disease that young patients usually have, which is mild to moderate. In some cases, we are seeing young patients with even what is called critical disease, where they require high amounts of oxygen or are on a ventilator.